Ryan Wolf, and I'm the president at Ability Ministry, and I'm so glad that you've tuned in to another one of our training videos. Today, we're going to talk about ministry information sheets. Doesn't sound that exciting, I know, but it's super, super important. You know, when I grew up as a kid in the 1980s, one of my most favorite cartoons was G.I. Joe. At the end of every G.I. Joe cartoon, they would end with a PSA. One of the G.I. Joes would come out and talk to a group of kids and tell them an important thing that they needed to know. And at the end, he'd always say, "Now you know, and knowing is half the battle." Knowing is important. Having the information that you need to be successful is so, so important. I want to tell you how we came about this information sheet that you can utilize in your ministry by telling you a horror story. This is a true story that happened at the church where I did a local church ministry, where I was the disability ministry pastor at a mega church for a very long time. Back in 2005 is when we launched our ministry for children and for teens. And we launched it because we knew it was a need. We knew it was at the heart of God. We knew that it was going to be a blessing to families. But we didn't know a whole lot more. In fact, we did our best with the knowledge that we had. We, invited some disability leaders that were working in the field to help us start off this ministry. But early on in our ministry, we had something terrible happen. We had a couple of leaders, and we always did our best to make sure that we had, more than 2 leaders in the room for every child or teen that was in the room. But what we had happen one Sunday morning, there were 2 volunteers left with one young adult female. She was a teen, but definitely close to being a young adult. Was a big girl that was pretty strong. She's nonverbal. And she was having an okay day. At the end of service went long. The 2 volunteers were hanging around, and the female volunteer needed to leave to go pick up her kids who were in children's ministry. So because it was just the 2 of them left, the male volunteer said, "It's okay. I'll hang with the young lady until her parents come." The female volunteer left, so it was this young adult female who's a teen in the ministry and a adult male volunteer. What we didn't know is that this teen had been abused by a young adult male recently. Now, she's nonverbal. She was not able to communicate the anxiety that happened as soon as the female volunteer left the room, and she was left in the room with a male volunteer, which we were assuming are very close to the age of the person that had abused her. She instantly freaked out. And like I said, she was big and she was strong, and she began to attack the male volunteer, who did his best in that situation. But by the time security came, the male volunteer was literally left bleeding. And didn't know what happened. From his perspective, the girl just kind of freaked out, which she did because of past trauma that she had experienced at the hands of a male that was around the same age as the volunteer in the room, even though there was no connection other than that. What we didn't know is that there was this trauma and that this was a trigger and this would have been a problem. Had we have known that, obviously, he would have left and the female volunteer would have stuck around. Ideally, neither of them would have left, because you always need to have 2 volunteers present. You never want to leave anyone alone. So that began to have us ask the question, what are we missing? What facts are we missing? What do we need to know to be successful? Because knowing is half the battle. And that's why at First Christian we created something similar to this, a ministry information sheet that can be filled out by the parent or the guardian to give us the tools necessary to be successful. We've since adapted this, and this ministry information sheet is available at abilityministry.com on the resources page. You can download it there. But what I'd like to do today with you is to walk through some of the things that are on our ministry information sheet that churches can utilize. You may have a sheet of your own that you're developing, or you may want to think, okay, what else could we add to it? First of all, let me tell you, after that incident, we were so freaked out. The information sheet that we created at First Christian was 6 pages long, front and back. It took like 20 minutes to fill out at least, and parents hated it. So we ended up reducing it down to 1 page front and back, and we were able to do this by adding check boxes rather than fill in the blanks for everything, which makes it go a lot quicker. So what goes on the sheet? Obviously, you have your demographic information, name, date of birth, nicknames, parents' names, cell phone, and is it okay to send text messages? Obviously, every church is different. Not every church has a paging system that can be used in the worship center to get a hold of parents, so it's always good to have some way to get a hold of parents or guardians in the situation, a situation comes up. So here's the important information. Obviously, this is good information to have, but here's the important information, the questions that you should be asking, and the information you should be gathering. First is helping to identify what are those things that the child or the teen in the ministry enjoys doing. We give a bunch of check boxes that can easily be checked off and a space to fill in the blanks. But not only the things that you enjoy, but what are some of those things that frustrate the child or the teen? Again, we give a bunch of check boxes on the information sheet and a small space to fill in the blanks, because here are the things that you want to avoid. Right? Here are some of the things that are triggers that are going to cause behaviors. If you know this beforehand, it helps you to be successful because you can avoid them. All right? So when these things happen, you need to know this. You can help me calm down by, and again, we'll give you different check boxes that can be checked off and a fill in the blank section. So you can help the person de-escalate when they become frustrated or when things aren't going right. Another thing that you need to know are any dietary restrictions. These are important things to ask, especially if your church provides a snack. Not all snacks meet every need of every child. So you need to know that so you can avoid any issues. Another thing that you need to know are different restroom needs. Is it something that the child can do independently? Are they wearing a diaper? Do they need assistance? And what are things that can help you be successful in those situations? Sensory needs are also important things that you need to know about. Are there different sensory issues that the child may have if they're in an environment that's loud, or there's bright lights or flashing lights or not enough light? There's so many different sensory things that could come up. And if you ask the question beforehand, you can be successful. Communication needs. Are they verbal, nonverbal? Do they use sign language? Do they have a communication device? So many times a child may use something like this at school. They may have a communication device at school, but they may not take it to church. If they have one, you should request that they bring it to church and familiarize yourself with it, because it'll help the child be successful. Obviously, there's always that other section where there's other things that you need to know. Having the information that you need to be successful is half the battle. If you have it beforehand, it's even better. So if your church does a registration or a pre-registration process, make sure there's a checkbox that says special needs, because that could trigger you, filling out some of those extra questions. If you have the information, you can be successful. Try to gather it before the first Sunday. If it has to wait until that Sunday when they show up for the first time, make sure that they fill it out before they leave. Don't send the sheet with them into service and tell them to bring it back after service is over. You need the information first. And another thing that's really important with these information sheets is you need to keep a copy of them with you at all times. Okay? If you fill out these sheets and it goes up to the children's pastor's office or the disability ministry pastor's office or the student pastor's office and gets locked up in there, it doesn't do anybody any good. You need to have a copy of it in the classroom that you can keep behind locked doors during the week, but it's available to the volunteers on Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, whenever you have programming. Because not every volunteer that comes in is going to know every child. But if you have the information accessible to them, they can always reference it based on who's showing up on the day. So make sure the information is easily accessible for anybody that might be volunteering on the day. Remember, knowing is half the battle. You can help your volunteers be successful. You can help your children, your teens, and anybody involved be successful if you gather that information and equip people with that knowledge. Thanks for tuning in to another one of our training videos today. We hope that you'll check back with us as we are always adding new training videos. Thanks so much.